بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Poison vaccines up your arm. You can stick your poison vaccines up your arm. You can stick your poison vaccines, because they cause all the disease. Stick your poison vaccines up your arm. Singing we are the 99%. Come on! Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the
What if we change the conversation, move the conversation away from the strength of the virus towards the strength of the body? You see, I know full well that your body's ability to overcome disease, like coronavirus, is far greater than anyone, including our government, the CDC, and these administrative doctors had led you to believe. In fact, Merck, a pharmaceutical company and vaccine producer, was working on a COVID vaccine, but they stopped. The reason being, they said it was far more effective to get the virus naturally and recover than to get the shot. In fact, they stated the vaccinated group had inferior immunity to the unvaccinated. And the hospitals in town, I saw them post something on social media, and I've also seen many claims, but they said there's nothing you can do naturally to fight this disease. And I find that very insulting. I believe that is the worst thing you can tell a patient, because it steals all hope. And right now, these administrative doctors or organizations in the government, they're not using this opportunity to educate the people. It means to be healthy. Instead, they're telling us there's nothing we can do. So just sit back in your recliner, watch your television, eat your Doritos, drink your sodas, avoid the gym, and stay far away from your neighbor and wear multiple masks. And just wait till this savior of a vaccine comes. Well, most people I know don't want anything to do with the vaccine. And Pfizer, one of the vaccine companies pushing this vaccine out, has a track record. And I'm going to read the short list to save time because I only have 3 minutes. Pfizer received the biggest fine in U.S. history as part of a $2.3 billion plea for mispromoting medicines and paying kickbacks to compliant doctors. Pfizer paid more than $60 million to settle a lawsuit over a diabetes medication that caused patients to die from acute liver failure. They paid $430 million in 2004 to settle criminal charges for bribing doctors. In 2011, they committed racketeering fraud and agreed to pay $142 million in the settlement. They were caught using Nigerian children as human guinea pigs without the parents' consent, violating the Nuremberg Code. Now, the vaccine courts have paid over $4 billion, has a track record, and I'm going to read the short list to save time because I only have 3 minutes. Pfizer received the biggest fine in U.S. history as part of a $2.3 billion plea for mispromoting medicines and paying kickbacks to compliant doctors. Pfizer paid more than $60 million to settle a lawsuit over a diabetes medication that caused patients to die from acute liver failure. They paid $430 million in 2004 to settle criminal charges for bribing doctors. In 2011, they committed racketeering fraud and agreed to pay $142 million in the settlement. They were caught using Nigerian children as human guinea pigs without the parents' consent, violating the Nuremberg Code. Now, the vaccine courts have paid over $4 billion in injuries since '86, and only 1% of vaccine injuries are reported. Not only that, I have a dossier put together by some of the best attorneys in the nation and physicians. This is the dossier that I'm going to submit to the council calling for the arrest of Dr. Fauci. On page 4, it talks about the violations. It is well documented, well reported, and well researched. Some of the violations, and I'm again going to read the short list. Marketing manipulation, conspiring to criminal commercial activity, lying to Congress, acts of domestic terrorism resulting in the death of American citizens, and funding and conspiring to commit acts of terror. I encourage you to read through this. This was sent to me from some of the best physicians and attorneys that I know. Newsflash. Our health is not the #1 priority of these drug commercials, or drug companies. Their main priority is to sell more drugs and vaccines. In other words, they don't care about our health, they care about our stockholders. Germophobia used to be a mental health disorder, but now it's considered a virtue. We're told that a droplet causes the spread of this disease, and the germ theory doesn't tell the full story. Blaming this disease on a droplet or germ is like blaming the flies for the trash. We must get back to being human again. Loving thy neighbor, not fearing him. My shirt says the immune system is not a conspiracy.
Gonna need you to wrap up.
It's time to lift the regulations and get back to the old normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tapper. Dr. Merritt, 1811Q Street.
Thousands of doctors and medical scientists are taking a stand against the nation's lockdowns and are calling for the country to reopen. One America's Pearson Sharp has more. Scientists say the lockdowns could have devastating consequences.
Tens of thousands of doctors are taking a stand against the oppressive lockdowns imposed by radical left-wing governors across the country. Some 35,000 doctors worldwide have joined together and signed a new document calling for an immediate end to the pandemic lockdowns. The effort, known as the Great Barrington Declaration, is being spearheaded by doctors from Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford universities. These doctors say they have grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of the COVID-19 policies, which have had tremendously negative consequences on public well-being. Instead, the doctors are calling for a new approach, what they call focused protection. Their new plan would allow most people to live their lives normally, building up immunity through natural infection, but also providing safeguards for the elderly and other at-risk communities. The consequences of the lockdown include fewer children going in for vaccinations, more deaths from heart attacks, fewer cancer screenings, and deteriorating mental health. The doctors say all these effects will lead to an increase in deaths in the years to come, all of which could have been prevented if not for the lockdowns. The medical scientists also argued against waiting to reopen for a vaccine, saying that keeping these measures in place until a vaccine is developed will cause irreparable damage.
So, in your experience as a doctor, is this lockdown more harmful to the public health than the coronavirus?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was supposed to be a 2-week slow the curve, turned into a 6-month complete lockdown. But there's no science based behind that. Nobody can live in lockdown forever. That's not healthy for anyone.
Following the declaration from the doctors, White House officials have taken notice and are now considering the recommendations outlined in the proposal. States like California have imposed some of the harshest lockdowns in the nation, with devastating consequences to public health.
Pandemic. They're getting tired of the pandemic, aren't they? You turn on CNN, that's all they cover. COVID, COVID, pandemic, COVID, 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 COVID. You know why? They're trying to talk everybody out of voting. People aren't buying at CNN, you dumb bastards. They're not buying.